All right, welcome to the God Theory Podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Jeremiah Bean, and the other one is sitting over there in that one corner. For those who are watching live,
That's me in the corner.
isn't
That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion.
it so appropriate? So appropriate. Didn't even set that one up. Well done. Knocked it out of the park. Yes, thanks for joining us for another episode. This episode, we're going to be talking about, as you can see in the title, the concept of is there a Cold War between psychology and religion? It's a pretty intriguing concept, I think.
Yes, one that touches you personally, as you are in the field of psychology and surrounded by religion. You're in
Indeed,
enemy
yeah.
territory.
Down here in the South, got plenty of those types around. And the funny thing is, we've when I first got here, my first year here. That was the summer of after my first year. Okay, we were seeing like one of the mega church pastors here, and he would sneak in the back door, and he would only take 6 o'clock appointments when nobody else was on campus, because of the fact, that I guess if you're being seen by a psychologist or a graduate student getting his PhD in psychology, then I don't know, makes you less of a religious person. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on. Depends on the faith. Like, you've heard of the prosperity doctrine, right?
No.
A lot of churches, not a lot, but several, especially Protestant beliefs, have this idea that the more righteous you are, the more God blesses you. And those blessings are
Right.
like houses and new jobs and helicopters for your congregation and mega churches. In fact, a lot of mega churches really wear this on their sleeve.
Mm-hmm. The idea that if you're having blessings like raining down from heaven, then it's probably because you deserve it.
Right, because you are living God's commandments. Mormonism also has a very living the gospel brings happiness, and so therefore, if you're not happy, there's something wrong with you, and there's something to be ashamed about that. Like, it's not implicitly taught, but that's kind of what you're going to assume if living the gospel brings happiness, and you're depressed, and you're on antidepressants or whatever, then something's not adding up. So a lot of churches with that kind of mindset are going to try and not necessarily go out of their way to demonize psychology, but it sort of necessarily puts you in the closet if you are needing to see a psychologist.
Yeah, especially because like a lot of the interventions. So we see, we're here in the South, right? And whenever we see clients, a lot of the times, especially like for some reason, especially marital clients. But by the time they see us, they're like, oh yeah, we tried the whole pastor thing, it didn't work. And I'm like, that was your first line of defense, was like a pastor? And they're like, yeah, and I guess he couldn't help us, so we're gonna come here and keep praying. And I was like,
That's weird. He doesn't have any training. That should have worked.
yeah, it should have worked. What went wrong? The plan was perfect. But yeah, it's so weird. It's like the first line of defense against it, and you're right that they seem ashamed by it. They're like, well, we tried praying, it didn't work, so we're gonna try something else. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's like their faith wasn't good enough to get healed, and so it's almost like a last resort.
yeah, there's kind of a funny thing about. Okay, so there's a couple fundamental differences. This is the way I see it between psychology and religion, because the funny thing is, in my program here in the South, a lot of people come from the South, like from Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, Texas. We got quite a few people from the South. So a lot of them retain their religiousness, not going to church or anything on Sundays. Most of them don't, but still the beliefs, despite being in the program, right, getting a PhD level in understanding human behavior, motivation, personality, that kind of thing.
Mm.
And I don't get that. Like, to me, they're at odds, like, just fundamentally. One of the reasons why is because both of them make claims of normality, like what's normal and what's desirable, and they're often at odds. In fact, they're almost always at odds.
Yeah, they can't both be right, and one of them has evidence, and the other one has a really old book.
Yeah, yeah. One has evidence, and the other one, is psychology. No, yeah. That's what I understand. Like, we find ourselves on opposite sides of the debate a lot. Like, for one is gay marriage, for example. We're like, well, actually, we did some research, and it looks like kids who were raised by two of the same sex parents seem to do equally as well. In fact, for some reason with lesbians, and we didn't control for socioeconomic status, but they actually do better. So yeah, and then we're like, so I guess this is totally the thing we should do, and yeah, and the whole time they're like, no, clearly not. They're gonna be cursed, or I don't know what the consequence is really. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to me.
Yeah. So you find religion and psychology at odds, sometimes implicitly, like I said, but there are some religions that actually go out of their way to almost wage war against psychology. I'm thinking specifically of Scientology, the religion
Hmm.
based off of a bad sci-fi writer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They absolutely do, especially psychiatry. But they believe that, and that's the other thing. Like fundamentally, I think that is at odds. Just what it seems to me like it's hard for me to understand that there are psychologists who are also religious, especially deeply so. I don't know if there are any, but um, that's insane because we both make statements of normality, right? Normative, like what makes you normal,
Mhm.
and healthy, like desirable, and we also both make statements about what makes you unhealthy or not good for you, and we make statements about how you become healthy. Curative powers, basically. Two
Right.
totally different approaches. So that I can understand that, like where some people, if you're, I don't know. Okay, I see a lot of fuel being thrown on the fire. One, for example, was I was seeing a couple who were very religious, and they'd been going to their pastor for 3.5 years, I believe it was, and nothing happened in their marriage. And they came to see me, and then because I'm using evidence based, not because I'm a super therapist, but because I use evidence based therapy, within a year, which is quite long. With these people are old and really set in their ways, but within a year they like we tracked their marital satisfaction and it was climbing like drastically, and they even said qualitatively and anecdotally they were like, man, it feels so much better. And they said we told our pastor that, yeah, and now, but then like a half a year later he was encouraging them to go back to him. I just I was frustrated by all that. I was like, because my hands are tied as their therapist. I can't be like, no, fuck that guy, right? Like,
Right.
but I want to be like, stay in a good thing. This is clearly working. He clearly wasn't. There's a whole research design called ABA, where like you do a pre-measurement, you apply the therapy, and then you take it away, and then see if it goes back down. The reason why you take it away to see if it goes back down is because they could just be progressing in time. Like some depression, for example, often remits on its own. It comes
Mhm.
back, but it often remits on its own. So you want to make sure that it's your intervention that fixed them, and not just time.
Right.
Um, so there's actually a whole research method that controls for that, or that works that way. I almost wanted to measure it and then just use it as my case conference at the end of the PhD program. Just be like, see this, I totally did it. But
Now, I'm that's kind of interesting that you find yourself in direct competition with pastors or ministers or priests in your field. Like that's not very often where you have
mm,
a scientific field where like some of the practitioners just like went to Bible college and like learned how to read. Like
yeah,
it's really weird that it's like, all right, I'm getting therapy. Oh, from a psychologist? No. Oh, a counselor probably, right? No, no, no. It's a guy. He went to a seminary. He
or
knows a
maybe
lot
not.
about the Old Testament. Like
Yeah.
he
Oh,
decided to call himself pastor one day. Like there's not really like I could become a minister online, and then I could become a counselor to somebody.
well, something hilarious. You're talking about like that, for example, raising kids or getting better, right?
Mm.
Feeling better, and or being more functional academically, through work, vocationally, or just socially. Um, and we demonstrably do this, right, in our field. But I think one of the yeah, it's funny that they've infiltrated our field. Right now, we're still cleaning our field out. It's been a while. There's a whole movement in the 1980s for evidence-based therapy. It was by Chambliss and Christoph and them, and it doesn't matter. A bunch of scientists got together, psychological scientists, and they were like, let's clean up this shit. It's bad, and we're still getting rid of the old guard. So like, yeah, I get it, and especially like counselors, we have no effect over them. Like some of them do actually practice evidence-based, 99% don't. Social workers, what the hell? How come you can get a bachelor and then treat someone for alcohol and drug dependency? Why is that a thing? That should not be a thing.
You
Like
know what
we
it
even
is?
consider that
Like
treatment resistant in our
this
field.
this is like how doctors probably feel when it's like, yeah, I talked to my homeopath and then I went to my
Yeah,
chiropractor and they both recommend I do something different than what you said, so I'm gonna go with them.
yeah, yeah. Or imagine every physician was like, you get to your GP and you're like, man, I got a cold, and he's like, okay, let me just write a prescription here for some painkiller and some throat spray. There you go. And he's like, Yeah, thank goodness, man. I've been suffering this for 3 weeks, and I've been seeing a homeopath and a chiropractor, and it didn't go away. And he's like, "Yeah, next time just come to me. Like, I've got
I'm a
real
real
stuff."
doctor. I went to school for this.
And he's like, "Well, no. One time I got acupuncture, my cough went away." And he's like, "Nah, but I can tell you why. I know why it went away."
Oh, you mean
Oh,
how long did it take? Oh, about 3 days. 3 days of acupuncture, the cough went away. That's
really
interesting.
weird.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, because do you know the remittance rate? It's actually 3 days. Isn't that weird? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
insanity.
I think that's the analog. Like the brain doctors, they're chiropractors and homeopaths or preachers.
Well, and not to get too crazy, but we're also fighting on the other side of like psychiatry. Psychiatry has a lot of good things to give in so many places. Like I worked in a facility where I regularly, at least once a day, recommended someone have a medical intervention by a psychiatrist. I'd write it onto the paper and send it off to the psychiatrist. There are so many times where psychiatry is good. However, I think people get a little too worked up on it. Like SSRIs, for example. They're decent. They're a little barbaric at the time. Like right now, they're working on BDNF, which is a lot more tight and controlled. SSRI is like gardening by punching the ground repeatedly. Yes, you do kill some weeds. You don't kill all of them, but you get a ton of side effects, and some of them are permanent. So like, you got to be careful. And then I'm like, well, okay, you say you could do SSRI, but we've actually run studies for depression, for example, moderate to severe depression. We've run tests to see which one was better. We had control. It's called randomized control trial. That's how they do it in medicine, and that's how we do it in evidence-based therapy. And we've shown multiple times that therapy is better and has no side effects, and you don't get it again later. Whereas SSRI, as soon as you get off, you get it again. And in fact, there's a rebound effect where it's worse. So like that's one of the cases where I wouldn't recommend it. OCD, it's probably an SSRI. The evidence-based therapy suggests that SSRI plus therapy is the best way to go. Same thing with anxiety. No, not anxiety. Mild depression. And then for panic attack, there's two ways. You can go pharmaceutical, or and you get benzodiazepine, or you get sometimes an SSRI. But that doesn't, like we've shown multiple times, within 4 settings we can cure you of panic attack for good. Like I don't know why a GP wouldn't point you our way. So we're kind of fighting from two ends. I think we just get tired. We pick our battles, like where do you go? But
now
so
psychology doesn't help the animosity, the rivalry between psychology and religion. When they publish things like last year's Psychology Today article, remember the one that was a meta review of studies that found religious belief is inversely associated with intelligence?
Yeah, there's been a few like that.
More knowledge, less belief in religion. Like publishing things like that certainly isn't making religions friendlier towards Psychology Today as a magazine.
Yeah. There's been a few knocks against this historically, right? First of all, Freud. I don't know if you noticed this. He published I think 6 books. Now Freud is a fraud. He's an idiot, and everything he said, minus I think 2, were absolutely wrong and in fact probably harmful to our field. But he did start the idea of a talk therapy, or just restructuring how you go about something and how your brain deals with certain stimuli through simply talking with someone and having their rational mind kind of reroute all that, right? Anyway, he wrote 7 books on religion, and he even called it the delusion of the masses or something like that. It's so inflammatory, and it didn't help again that right after that, what happened? The next revolution was behaviorism. Now, behaviorism makes the audacious claim that all human behavior is predictable and controllable by environmental stressors, or by your environment.
Yeah, it kind of throws free will under the bus in some lights, which is something that religions hold sacred, if you pardon the phrase.
Yeah. In fact, there's even a book that Skinner wrote called Freedom of something and Evil. I forget, but basically it's like someone being culpable for something, basically, like for agency almost, right? Like you can't, like, for example, people who are commit sexual crimes, for example, I think we talked about this last time, but of the large majority by no small margin is they were victims themselves when they were younger. So then you're like, well, shit, man, you can't just say good and evil anymore.
Yeah,
man, that's just it's more like it's a series of victims. Like,
but who were the first victims?
Cain. Right. Yeah. So behaviorism, made a lot of people mad, like in the religious circles, and then you get people. I just saw a podcast that said religion is a mental illness.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
No, it's not by a psychologist or anybody.
First of all, to be
research.
to be an illness, doesn't it have to be something that's not normative? Like if everyone suffers from it, like
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Otherwise, you'd call it like dying an illness because we're all dying eventually.
right.
But
And also, aren't we kind of hardwired for belief? Like, isn't that the normal state of our brain? So really,
yeah,
you could almost make the argument that atheism is more of a mental illness than religion, if we're using that term like willy nilly the way they seem to.
yeah. Whenever I was on the Thinking Atheist, that licensed psychologist, he even said that he was like, "How is this not a delusion?" And I was like, "Oh, please don't, man, please don't. I don't know what your schooling was like, but that's not." I was happy to see that JT's wife, Michaelin, she gave a talk about religion is not a mental illness. I was like, thank you.
Right.
It's not a mental illness. It's a monopolization of cognitive biases we have, basically.
Right. It's a perfectly normal functioning brain falling prey to the perfectly normal cognitive biases that it's evolved to fall prey to.
Yeah, we don't call the sunk cost fallacy an illness. Sunk cost illness.
Yeah.
No, it's just something our brain regularly does.
I suffer from cognitive dissonitis. It's really, really hurting my head.
Oh, God, you pill. Yeah.
I could use some Advil.
What's the treatment for that? Yeah, it's. Oh, and what's worse is I've seen a few talks where psychology and or neuroscience is being cited in like debates in religion versus science, because when it comes to science of human behavior, motives, why people do what they do, violence, this is all the realm of psychology. So like we're being used as a weapon a lot, I think, and it's to the point now where like I'm waiting. It's like a Cold War. It's like Russia. Me and U.S. and Russia. We're just like, come on, do it. We're in the background, and all our spies are doing the fighting, but we're clearly the superpowers. I don't know. That's kind of how I see it right now.
So yeah, that's. Do you notice a lot of like overt hostility towards psychology from the pulpit, like people preaching down there like don't go to the doctor, blah blah blah, or is it more just like the subtle like I'm ashamed to see my psychologist, I'm going to go back to my pastor kind of Cold War sensibilities?
I think it's kind of both, but more of the Cold War. I think. Like I don't know. I don't go to church, obviously, but there's
what do you do on Sundays?
Yeah, I actually better myself. I record a podcast, a different one, and then I work out, and that's usually my long run day. So yeah, I do things that aren't sitting down, which have been shown to be unhealthy for you for more than 60 minutes. Anyway, I don't know what they're saying down here. Honestly, I've never been to church down here, but whenever I went in Arkansas when I was younger, nobody ever said that. It was kind of like if things get serious, then go see a psychologist, right? Because it's kind of like going to the doctor. Like if you get sick, pray. But if you get serious, go to a doctor. Because
does it feel like the career is less prestigious? Like I don't know. When I meet like a doctor, like someone with a real doctor in front of their name, like not like Dr. Dre, but like someone who actually has a degree. Like I feel sort of like wow, that's respect. Like I might not agree with everything they have to say, but I acknowledge that they worked hard to get to where they are.
Yeah.
And when I meet a pastor, I just kind of laugh. But I feel like for most people, it's the reverse. Like they're kind of like, "Oh, dude, he's a pastor or a youth minister or whatever bullshit job you have." Where it's just like your training consists of like I can wave a Bible around and talk about things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like in a lot of places that job gets more respect than like, "Oh, what are you? A doctor? Yeah, I'm a psychologist. Oh, a psychologist, cool."
I almost feel like
are you gonna analyze me now?
Yeah. Oh, I'm talking about this dream I had. Shut up, please. Don't do that. No, I feel like it's it's cognitive dissonance, right? Like, whenever we they're like, whoa, dude, you're the real deal. Like my wife has bipolar. What should I do or whatever? Or hey, my mom was borderline. Like, is there any way I can prepare that relationship? Lots of questions. But as soon as you say something that's antithetical to what they already quote unquote know, so like if you're like but one of the first things. Oh. God, okay, so there's some of our faculty, a decent amount, are irreligious, almost all of them, minus two, and some of them are actively atheists, right? one time we were talking about, there's a case conference where, like, at the end of your PhD training, you talk about your best case, basically, right? You just say, like, here's what I did, here's the measurements, because in psychology we measure everything. So, like, I'm like, here's the measurements, here's where I applied the intervention, here's when it went down, right? Hopefully that's what you have. Hopefully you have at least one case like that when you get out and, like,
where you help somebody.
Yeah, where you actually help someone that didn't leave therapy or whatever. But yeah. So so there was this lady. Okay, she has schizophrenia, which is difficult to treat, both even pharmaceutically or psychologically, but especially psychologically. At least there are pharmaceuticals that can lower the positive and negative symptoms of schizophrenia. So she comes in and she's poor. This lady is so poor. You know, obviously she doesn't have a job. She's living off welfare. Like, and despite what some Republicans may want you to think, welfare is not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money at all.
Welfare queens. I've heard about them.
I know, please. And so she doesn't have any money, and I mean, this lady comes in with, like, black glasses, so you can't steal her soul when you see her. She's got like you know, straight up not the early stages of schizophrenia. She's full blown, and you know, but we're helping. We're getting her. One of the treatments you use is to develop social skills, and then because schizophrenics will withdraw, and then they won't learn normal behaviors. It's almost like the Wolf Boy, you know, of France. He never learned normal behavior because he didn't have any social interactions. Well, this is kind of helps that. And it helps them, like, check some of their paranoid delusions, and it's, you know, it's shown to work. Small effect size, but it's shown to work. So, and we actually give our treatment for free to this lady, you know, pro bono, because she needs it so badly. Unfortunately, she lives 30 minutes away, so that sucks. Gas money, right? Her friend drives her, so it's only once every 2 weeks do we get to see her, and we're like, all right, we'll do what we can. So we're helping her. Well, eventually she stops coming because she said, well, the money I used to spend on therapy to drive there, I now spend on tithe, because some missionaries came to our door and invited us to church, and my my advisor in the back, he stood up and he goes, oh, does she want a treatment that actually works? Because he goes, because if she wants to be spending her money, let's put it where it's going to be most useful. And then, like there's two religious faculty, and they were like, oh, and, like, everybody was like, oh snap, because I was like, yes, please. Oh, can we please challenge that? Why can't we just be open about that and be like, oh, well, that doesn't work, so you probably want to save that money and give it to us instead. Or not even to us, we're not even taking it, we're doing pro bono, just drive to us.
Yeah.
Like, she's paying for church when there's free therapy. Like, I don't know.
It was tragic.
Yeah. That, and then the whole, like, I mean, think about the parenting. What does psychology say? What does, you know, what do pastors typically say? Totally at odds. Like,
yeah, spare the rod, spoil the child. The Bible says to abuse children. Like, why are we still turning to that for parenting advice? Like, right between the chapters about, like, not eating shellfish and how much you can beat up your slaves before you can't beat them anymore. That's where we're getting our parenting advice.
It's pretty crazy.
And then you're not, like, a good parent because you don't believe in God, even though, like, it's just ridiculous.
We had someone, and I won't disclose, I don't think anyone who listens will know, but we had someone tell us that, despite the fact my wife is a marriage and family therapist, she's a counselor.
And she has 2 master's degrees, right?
2 master's degrees, and one of those is specializing in how to raise children and have a healthy, happy family.
Also, she's currently doing that.
Yeah, that is also her profession currently. I'm getting my PhD, and one of my focuses for a while was child development, because I have 2 kids and I'm super curious, and this is a great opportunity. And this person told us that if anything happened to her, because she's a single mom, unfortunately, then she'd rather give it to a religious family than us, because religion. And I was like, oh, it hurts so bad. It hurts.
All evidence, like, your kids are really well behaved. Like, I stayed with you for like a week in the summer when I came down to visit, and your kids are super well behaved. Like, they get into trouble like all kids do, but I could see the behaviorism working on them. You're like, okay, well, why do we do that? And they're like solving their own problems, but you're not religious, so not good parents.
I can't believe that trumps that, and the family identified to give it to is the most dysfunctional family I've ever seen. Like, that's not true. The most appearing functional, but actually super dysfunctional, right? That would be an accurate statement.
Fair point.
I was like, that's
do they believe in invisible space wizards?
They do.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
there's just so many places we're at odds. In fact, I find very few places we're actually like in agreement. I don't know. Despite all this, right, the fact that we're fundamentally different, you see very few articles on religion in psychology.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. It's almost like this weird blind side at conferences. Like nobody ever presents on religion, which is weird because psychology is about human behavior, and that's a huge aspect of human behavior, especially in the States, is religion. Like it seems like a dearth of evidence, or like what's going on with that?
Oh, there's. Oh. Okay, so it would be like it's like studies about like imagine probably I don't know 50 years ago. I think that's a safe assessment. 50 years ago, studying in the field as a black psychologist, and then talking about the atrocities against black people, right? Or talking about how white people maybe don't do everything perfectly, like it feels like that. Like
it seems like an important topic.
It is. It is. Like there was actually a faculty member down at the University of Florida who told her graduate student, "Don't publish anything on atheism. Just don't do it." And she was like, "Why? We're actively talk about minorities. I just figured they're a minority." So, and she was like, "Just don't. Just wait till you get tenure. Go get a nice place. Then get tenure. Then go ahead and do that. Because there's just, you're gonna end up on the front of like CNN Time or Time Magazine or something, and no graduate school is going to take you because it's going to be controversial and you're going to be a bad talking head on Fox News, you know. Just don't do it. There's so much like cultural like baggage with that there's no approaching that. It's horrible.
Now, do you follow the research that's coming out of other countries? I wonder, is that an American phenomenon, this taboo, or is it something that like all psychology falls prey to?
That's a good question. I read British journals occasionally, but I definitely consume mostly American. So, and I know that it's less prevalent there, but you know they're not as entrenched as we are here. Like they're still religious, but I don't know if you saw that article where they asked that statesman, who was that, whether you believe in evolution. Did you see that?
No.
Some statesman went over there. I think he might be running. I'm bad at politics, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah. There was some GOP.
Trying
to get the GOP nomination went to England and just like said all the wrong things.
Yeah. And one of them was, they were like, hey, so just this doesn't have to do with politics, but just here in London, we like to ask this question of all the Americans coming through because it's kind of funny just to see, do you believe in evolution? And he's like, I don't see how that has anything to do with it and with this. And he's like, I know, it's a funny, and it amazes us. We always like to get a good laugh when there's still people who say no. So do you?
It's a good warning. Like it's a good warning that you're walking into a trap when they say we think it's funny when people say what you're about to say.
But please bring it on. Yeah, it's Anyway, I don't. That's how I feel sometimes. Like I just I just find myself at odds a lot of the times. A lot of the same ways I do about in like my casual life as in my professional life. Whenever I'm talking about principles of morality or like that kind of thing, because I'm like, morality isn't real. That's a socially derived concept, right? And they're like,
you're like, whoa, or I'll talk about, sorry, do we still all believe in absolute morality? Like it's weird when you realize the basic assumptions of the conversation aren't there.
Yeah.
Like when there's a girl in your program and she started off very Christian when she went to school for psychology, and I remember talking to her when she first started studying it, and she was like coming at me with this dualistic idea of like spirits, little like ghosts that control our bodies. And I was like, wait, what? You're studying psychology? You believe there's a little ghost inside your head right now? And she's like, well, yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, she's long since given that up since after studying science for science kind of erased that from her. But I remember just like thinking like, wait, what? I thought among you and I, we could have a conversation where we didn't have invisible ghosts that live inside our bodies and tell our brains what to do.
It's so weird. There's this. There's actually one called. It's a values-based behavior. It's called logotherapy. It doesn't matter, but it's big in like Europe right now, but and certain parts of the U.S. And it basically is very amenable to Catholic belief or particularly Catholic, it seems like, but of religious belief in general. And basically it has to do with like it's values-based work, like what do you value, how do you get there, real easy, simple stuff.
Mm.
But where do you find meaning in life? It's kind of that. It's based off the Viktor Frankl idea of he was in a concentration camp and found happiness anyway.
Yeah.
So it's based off that idea, and I think there's this spiritual element to it. Like occasionally, there's like we need to get healthy. Behavior, your mental well-being, and your spirituality is all keenly attached. And I was like, wait, what was that last one? You can't just sneak that in there. What was that last?
Thank you.
I agree with that.
I hate when people use the word spirituality like in a secular context, like it's just a thing. Like spirituality, like even like atheists sometimes will be like, yeah, I don't believe in God, but I'm a spiritual person. Like, wait, what? Can you define that for me? Can you give me a quick definition? Spiritual person. Do you believe in spirits? No, I just feel awe sometimes. Well, don't we have a word for that? Isn't that like awe? Why do you have to make it spiritual? I feel like words are important, and the messages you're giving out, like, yeah, you can redefine spiritualism and mean like you feel awe, but you're also creating an environment where it's okay for people to say they believe in ghosts when you say that. I hope you're cool with that. Like you're making that word more acceptable, and people are not hearing it the way I think you're intending it.
Yeah. That's insane. Even like within our own field, like I said, the logotherapy thing, which it's not an evidence-based therapy, so we don't really touch it, but it's something that's going on, and it drives me crazy because you can't be a behaviorist and still believe that there's a spirit controlling your body. You cannot do that. Like either it is stimulus response and a series of those contingencies that get more and more complex, and you get secondary reinforcers, secondary, punishment. It takes a long time to understand this crap, but now that I do, there's no room for any of that. Like
there's no room for original sin and fallen natures.
Yeah, no, I know exactly. So do you know who would be wrong in the Genesis account? God. God would be wrong, because if we're all rats and the rat is always right, which means like the rat is going to do what his environment dictates, setting that food pellet there right in the front and saying don't touch it, the rat's gonna, and the rat's going to do it. That's your fault. Like the rat is always right.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first revelations that I feel like pulled me away from that, because I was like, wait, if God can see the future and he's building the Garden of Eden, he's like, oh, make some flowers over here, get some chirpy birds, get some, I guess, non-carnivores, but whatever, and like, oh, a beautiful I don't know, however it looked, right? And then all of a sudden he says like, and then, oh man, that's pretty good, but what if I put a tree here that like, still gives room for freedom of will, because that's a real thing, and I'll put it on the outskirts so they never see it. Wait, no, I'm thinking about that. Let me see. I'm gonna fast forward. Nope, people won't touch it there. Let me move it in a little bit, but they're not tempted. Let me see. Nope, still wouldn't touch it. Okay, maybe a little more. How about right friggin' in the middle? And then I'll tell them what it is, tell them not to do it, and then let the snake in to tempt them. That's the only scenario in which they will be tempted to take the fruit. Yeah, let's do it. Like,
yeah. Okay, and in Mormon theology, like God's plan was for that all to go down. Like He wanted them to take the fruit to get the ball rolling and get like the earth populated and stuff.
Wow, that's fucked up.
Yeah. Well, you know what's more fucked up? Classical Christian theology, where God's perfect plan got ruined. Like He originally wanted everybody in the garden to live there happily forever, and then holy shit, didn't see this coming, but they ate the fruit. Like they're both kind of fucked up, but at least the Mormon one, like, okay, it makes sense that an all-powerful God, everything's gonna go according to His plan. This idea that like Christians have, where it's like, oh man, if it hadn't been for Adam and Eve, we'd all be living as God originally intended with His original plan, living in paradise. Like that's what doesn't click in my mind.
Here's the response, though. Well, you can't do anything with free will. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure everyone on Earth wanted to live during the flood. Pretty sure they willed that. Like, there's plenty of
free will didn't count for shit when Lot, like's wife turned around.
Yeah, pretty sure she willed herself to live. Pretty sure he willed not that to happen. Pretty sure that the Pharaoh you hardened his heart so that he couldn't change his mind. Pretty sure there's a lot of times you fuck with people's will. Pretty sure you let the devil tempt Jesus for a long time. Pretty sure that will's not a big thing.
Yeah, and if free will is so important that it can thwart God's perfect plan, then I don't know if we can call Him omnipotent anymore.
Yeah, and okay, you can let someone have a free will and then stop them before the bad thing happens. Does
Yeah.
that ever happen? Let me think. Yeah, it did. Isaac didn't freaking die.
Or literally any time a police officer catches somebody in the midst of a crime, they don't wait for them to finish murdering the person before they arrest them because free will.
Yeah, they're like, they got the gun. They're like, you better finish that or you're gonna walk away scot free. And then they do, and they're like, dang it! And they every time it never gets any easier.
Oh, if only I had intervened, but I had to respect his free will. Now he's truly guilty.
Especially it's like Minority Report, right? It's a cop that knows it's gonna happen. You don't need to wait. Just be like, all right, here you are in the act. Yep, you were about to pull the trigger. Like that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that free will's already been exercised as far as I'm concerned. You don't have to let him murder the person for that to be free will.
Oh my gosh, there's so much of that too. Like this backwards logic is something that humans are really, really good at, and is really, really bad logic, right? So, for example, how about this one? We had a lot of snowstorms, right? I don't know if you heard about this. So, here's something I see on Facebook. Here's something I see on Facebook. Here, someone takes their camera out, bam, start looking around, and as it's panning across, just I don't know, probably 30 cars wrecked and in the ditch. I mean, it was the biggest pileup I have ever seen on the internet, even, and this was in my hometown in Bentonville back in the day. No, back in the day, this is a week ago during this big storms. Well, it's panning through, and I was like, whoa, my husband got home safe through all that. And then she was like, praise God, thanks for all the prayers, guys, really appreciate it. We just have to have the tow guy bring our truck in tomorrow. Like, what? Wait, so he got in a horrible wreck, but he didn't die. Wait, what scenario would have been bad there? Like,
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he?
Because if he had died, he'd be with Jesus now, which is also a win.
Yeah, you should watch that video of that. Wait, did we talk about this on this podcast? I can't remember. Maybe it was the other one. But the boy walking down the street.
Yeah, I think
there's this video about this. There's this boy named. They're like Daryl walks down the street, scenario 1, and he's walking down a rough, tough neighborhood. Right? This car drives by. The window's rolling down. A gun comes out. Oh no, Daryl, watch out! Bullets fly through the air, whiz by. 9 bullets go by. Not a single one touches Daryl. He gets home. All right. So here's how his family responds. Wow, praise God. You got saved. That's a miracle, right? I'd be hard pressed to disagree. That's pretty awesome, right? Scenario 2. Daryl's walking down the street. Car pulls up. Gun come out. Bullets are flying everywhere. He gets grazed, loses an ear, but he's alive. Praise God. Saved him. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Scenario 3. He's walking down, and he's walking. Oh, here comes the gun. Bullets flying. It shot him in a major artery. He's going to lose his leg and maybe his arm, but he's alive. And that's all that counts because God is good and he saved his life. After a long surgery, right? He saved his life. God is good. Scenario 4. He's walking down the road. Bam, 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 bam. He gets shot. He's laying on the ground. He's dying. And he dies. Praise God. It didn't take long. It was real quick. God works in mysterious ways, man. He's up in heaven. He's living a dream.
Heaven need another angel, Jeremiah.
In science we call that non-falsifiable. I don't know how you.
When you start with the conclusion and you work backwards from there, it's never okay. Like you're not going to find the truth most often. Like if you happen to be right at the beginning, you'll still be right, but if you're wrong, you won't know. And that's how religion works. It starts with the conclusion and then it works backwards. That's called apologetics.
Yeah, especially presuppositional, which is in flavor right now.
Oh,
that should not even be called anything. That should just be called being a dick and wrong and bad at logic. That's what that should be called.
Yeah. When you name your flavor of apologetics after a fallacy,
yeah. Not a good sign.
Like it's called begging to questionism. And what we do is
I'll give you a hint. It's not logical. Yeah, I don't.
Now you just have to assume God's real, and God's real. Boom.
Yeah. You're right. I just did that with a flying monkey, and that worked too. That's weird. Can I do this with anything, or is this just God? You tell me.
God. Don't do it with anything else.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's insanity. But anyway, I think honestly, I think there's a cold war between psychology and religion. So I think that it's just a matter of time before all hell breaks loose. But to do that, there's going to have to be people who are openly irreligious,
willing to publish about atheism without losing tenure.
Yeah, so it can't be an associate professor. It has to be like full-on tenured professor whose expertise is already religion, and then now he lost his religion. Like it's just such a small subset.
Yeah,
so
the closest we have right now is a neuroscientist.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Although I have my issues with, whatever. I won't get into that.
With ultra
Yeah, definitely. Like,
libertarianism.
yeah, exactly. Like, how come so many people? Like, I'm in a field where everybody is allowed to say whatever they want on a regular basis. You would listen to a regular podcast, and they're like, "Well, that's just how humans act, man," you know. And the other guy's like, "Yeah, it really is." And I'm like, "Can you please, can you please refrain from making statements like that?" They don't do that with physics, right? Because the language isn't there. Nobody's like, "Oh yeah, it's like atoms. You know how like when I was eating this morning, the atoms were spinning. Like it's kind of like that." Nobody says that, but everyone talks about sadness and depression and happiness, right? Everyone experiences that sometime in their life. So everyone has their little pet theory that they call truth without ever testing it. It's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, it's because you're in a field that's, I mean, happiness, the good life. These are the oldest questions. This is what philosophers have been talking about for thousands of years before Freud. And so, like, you guys come in like the new kid on the block with your fancy science and your graphs and your charts. You want to get in? You want to like take it all and claim it for yourself? Fuck you guys. We've been talking about this before you even arrived. And sometimes we were right and sometimes we were wrong. There was no way to tell. So everyone's got a philosophy now.
How did that never hit anyone? Like, why did that take even till 1960, the Boulder, 1957, the Boulder Revolution in psychology, where it was like, hey, we should test these claims that Freud was making. Let's do that. Like, dude, what? Why is that not a thing? Like, how come philosophers were just millennia? They're just like, I don't know. I kind of feel like people are better off if they work. And another one's like, nah, man, I kind of think they're better off if they don't. And some other guy's like, I kind of think it's like a middle ground. And they're like, we're never going to resolve this. Why weren't they just like, let's go find some people who work, some who don't, and some who work some, and then measure like their happiness? What the hell?
Why is this? It took an enlightenment. It took a scientific revolution, and then it took like another 100 years of just messing around before like people started trying it.
It's so weird, and I understand. Like we had a rocky start. All sciences do. Good Lord, look at the beginning of medicine with Galen and the humors and tree finding, where you're drilling into someone's skull. I get it. You made some mistakes. I get it. Yes, Freud is dumb, and the earlier movements of like hypnosis and fringe bullshit like that wasn't based on science. Yeah, which actually works with severe depression.
Doesn't work on homosexuality though. BYU tried that.
It does not. No, no. Well, okay. How are you measuring homosexuality? Admittance of homosexual beliefs or temptation?
They were measuring it by boners when watching gay porn, and the diodes were attached to the penises and would shock them whenever they got one.
Oh, that's horrible. Okay, so did they also test to see if those people were turning straight, or were they just muting all sexual behavior because every time they get excited they get a dick shock?
And it worked. Some of them just never had sexual arousal anymore, and they killed themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say but were they like straight then? Because you said they believe in a binary system. You're either homosexual or you're not. Like psychology doesn't believe that.
They believe in you're either heterosexual or you're heterosexual with homosexual. Same-sex attraction. You suffer from same-sex attraction.
So it seems logical. You should probably be measuring heterosexual porn too. Like probably be showing that. Make sure that's going up and not both of them are going down, and you're just killing this person's sexual drive. I don't know. Just what do I know?
They have a really hard time with the word gay. Like that TLC show, My Husband's Not Gay, about Mormon men who aren't gay, but they do suffer from same-sex attraction. But it's cool because they marry cool wives and everything's fine.
Suffer. Oh, okay.
It's just one recent example that comes to mind of religion trying psychology and doing it wrong.
That's what I'm talking about, man. With the internet now, and like people giving talks and things that are on YouTube, I think it's just a matter of time. Because I'm down. If you guys want someone to tell religion why it's stupid, like I'm down. Just hire me for your talk. Hire me nothing. I'll do it for free, faux free. Because I'm an academic, and it's a little line on my CV that is worth gold. So I will do it. I think there's more people like me. As people lose their religiosity, like in our nation, they're also getting
that's
PhDs.
What it's gonna take is the internet and like TED Talks and just like more knowledge getting out there, and it's just gonna change. Like I'm surprised that taboo still exists among scientists. Like the American Academy of Science, they're not shy about saying, yeah, we're like 98% atheist up here in the American Academy of Science, but.
Yeah.
With psychology, it's still a career killer to say something like that. So I wonder why psychology is dragging its feet.
Oh, well, two reasons. One, the APA is actually a professional for-profit organization. Well, I say for-profit. It's Actually, I don't know if it's non-profit or not, but they get their salaries, they get bonuses and whatnot based on it's a business. And so we were being criticized by the ICD, so the medical community of the World Health Organization. We were criticized because the fact they were like, the World Health Organization is a non-profit, purely humanistic organization. The APA actually makes a lot of money. You guys probably shouldn't be making it DSM, a diagnostic of statistical, the DSM, the diagnostic of statistical measurement. Shit, man, that's embarrassing.
It's the book psychologists use to diagnose things like official.
But most the scientific psychologists, we don't like it. Like I showed mine whenever I had interviewees coming into our PhD program. I used it to hold the door open because I was like, that's how much I believe in that system. It sucks. It's a symptomology instead of like an etiology, which is how it should be made. That's like, remember when we used to classify animals as like how they looked? Remember the Lamarckian way or whatever? Then we were like, wait a minute. Yeah, like, a whale is kind of like a fish, so they're fish whales are in the same family. It's called fish whale.
I'm reading Moby Dick, and there's a whole chapter like arguing why they should be called fishes instead of mammals.
See, like, yeah, but then eventually we, learned evolution, and we were like, oh, maybe we should trace lines back, and that's how we classify things. And bam, it's a better system. It's got predictive power. It's amazing. That's what we've been asking for in psychology, and the APA won't do it. But the ICD is trying to do that. They pushed this new one coming out, the 10. What is it? The 11. It's a classification manual also. And here's the other thing. They put their normal health with their mental health in the same thing. They don't make a distinguish. They just call them both illnesses. They don't make a distinguishing like change. We've got like the ICD or the not ICD, the what's the physician's handbook that they use in the U.S. I can't remember, but they got that and then the DSM. So like a psychiatrist who is an MD who also attempts to diagnose. I say attempts because they have the worst track record for evidence-based treatments, the most harm done, the most malpractice against them for psychological treatments, and the least amount of scientific measurement, both of outcome and of initial symptomatology. So yeah, they're bad. But I think, they have to have both instead of just being like, no, they're all in the same spectrum, and insurance covers them all. I don't know why America considers it a whole different mental health and health. Why are those two different? Did you know over 80%, I think it's 87% of all chronic illnesses are behavioral? Smoking, drinking, exercising. We can cure almost anything now, and they just almost found a cure for cancer. If you put cannabinoids, THC, cannabinoids inside of a cell, like you can inject it in, it stops the cancer process and actually turns it backwards. They're just not finding this. It's in the UK right now. We can cure everything. The only thing we can't cure is behavior. Guess who can? Fucking me. So why can't you put me in a DSM and be like, oh hey, you're a fat fuck. Wow, that was really rude. Sorry.
I don't know if that's how you should do it.
No, sorry. I'm getting passionate, so I'm starting to get mad in general, and then I'm specific. It's like when you have a bad day and you come home. You're
projecting on this imaginary fat patient of yours who doesn't even exist.
Yeah, and I'm not mad because the rat is always right. Like if you're eating, it's because of environmental contingencies. But what I'm saying is, let's say you've got someone that's near death, instead of being like, man, maybe we should do bariatric, surgery, which is fine. We do those evals here. Instead, we can cure that, no problem. And guess what? It won't come back. Bariatric almost always does. And mortality, what is it? It comes down, I think, 7 years every time you get a bariatric eval. Like ours, you live longer. I don't understand why we're not being prescribed. Like
we're figuring out how to reprogram meat puppets, like these meat robots. Like we've hacked into their programming now, and that's a big deal. But I think people are still, they're separating their heads. It's that dualism again. They have the mind and the body, and it's two separate things, and they should be treated separately.
People tell me I've got a physical illness. When someone tried to argue with me, because I was like, well, depression is a behavioral problem, and they're like, it's a physical illness. I'm like, everything's physical. Of course, you talking right now is physical. When you think, guess what?
Physical.
That's physical. Yeah, it's all.
You don't
physical,
have any metaphysical illnesses or supernatural illnesses, so let's just stop with the language. Yeah, it goes back to this. Most people are still dualists because that's the intuition, right? Like our intuition serves us very poorly in a lot of ways, and one of the ways it serves us poorly is this idea that we are separate from our bodies because, like we're a little ghost behind our eyes.
And there's like this necessity for reductionism, which depends on your level of analysis. For example, like if you're an athletic coach or teaching a swimmer, are you going to be like, okay, let me tell you about nicotininergic musculoskeletal movement. Okay, so nicotininergic is going to be musculotenic, at least, is going to be the ones on your outer limbs. Okay, you're going to be wanting to fire those off at a higher rate. Okay, so you're going to want to get those going in the pool. That's not a helpful level of analysis. Instead, you're like, of course, the doctor knows that's what's going on. He's like, okay, I know exactly how your muscles work. Let me tell it to you in a way that actually is worth the shit, right? Like, here's what you do: swim with your arms like this. Okay. And then once you do that, practice that a few times a week, and you'll get stronger. And the doctor knows why that happens, why the breakdown of the muscles and the lactic acid and filtering it out. Like, he knows exactly why. I know all the neurological things going on. We have to know it before we can get our PhD. It's a required part of our teaching, but it doesn't help. What does it matter? Like, someone's like, I've got a chemical imbalance, and I'm like,
I know.
No such thing.
I know what's happening in your brain right now, and I know how to fix it.
And that's not a thing. Serotonin balances the other things, and if that's off, first of all, there's no balance. Like, for what? Happiness, it looks one way. If I take a photo of your brain, or I measure like your water flow, that's one way to do it, or the spinning of your electrons, fMRI. There's a couple different ways to do that, but you balance for happiness, or you're balanced for sadness. You're balanced for in between. You're balanced for being at rest. You're balanced for being
sleeping. There's no like perfect all the time homeostasis. Yeah. Like this is your brain. Your brain on drugs.
If you're, I'll give you a hint. If you're doing something, your brain's driving it. So there's a different amount of chemicals firing off. Let's say you just had someone step on your foot. You're now imbalanced.
Yeah.
Because endorphins are firing off like crazy, and so you've got basically, yeah, your fire alarm system basically is kicking in, and that's. Are you imbalanced? No, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
and how do you get that better?
Working properly.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's this reductionism is all I'm saying. It's just an unhelpful level of analysis. Sometimes it is helpful, like schizophrenia, for example. Like that right there is just a misfiring. That's just fucked up. Your brain's fucked up. Sorry, Ben. That sucks. Like, there's nothing we can do about that. Like, another one is Parkinson's. Sorry, dude, your brain's fucked up. I can't do anything psychologically. I can have you get up and exercise, and that will not help. I can have you make better decisions or some shit, and that's not going to help. I can have you teach you cognitive restructuring. In other words, sending from your hypothalamus to a different part of your brain. But that's not gonna help, man. I'm sorry, you fucked. Like, but where things I can help on is like patterns of learned behavior, like learned
anxieties, phobias, depressions, interpersonal
OCD,
skills,
bipolar, borderline personality disorder. Bipolar, we can even make you as labile as taking lithium, but without any of the side effects. Emotionally labile means less roller coasters, and that's what's happening with bipolar. Anyway. We study the shit. Like, yes, I know what goes on in your neurology. I understand that, but how is that helpful? Like, when your doctor says, take 2 of these and go home and lay down, he doesn't say, ingest this, wait approximately 6 hours for it to penetrate the blood-brain barrier. At that point, it's got a high phospholipid solubility, so it's going to be there for a while. In other words, wait until it's all gone. Until at that point, approximately about an hour before that happens and it's flushed out of your system, about 10%, you're going to be orally ingesting another 2 pills. That will take about an hour to get into your blood-brain barrier. He's not going to tell you that because that's not helpful. Who cares? He knows that's what's going on. That's why he said 6 to 8 hours.
Right.
That's like me. I'm telling you to do this, not because what? No, dude. Oh, I'm done. I gotta stop.
Yeah, this has been a passionate episode for you. Yeah. So religion and psychology. It's there's a lot of stuff bubbling under the surface, and we got a little peek at it tonight.
Yeah. Sorry about the diatribe there, especially at the end. Oh God, I'm passionate about that stuff. But yeah. Anyway, yep, we're running up on time though. So
if you're my fuck the Pope diatribe, we'll do that next week.
Yeah, fuck the Pope.
Seriously, fuck that guy.
Fuck the Pope.
Fuck that guy, and I'll tell you why next week. That's called a teaser.
All right, cool. Well, we'll see you guys next week then.